Hindsighters, thank you for tuning in to Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM, where there's always something good to talk about. Tonight, through lost pain can come a creation of art via music, vocal, and instruments. The flutist, whose name will be revealed very shortly here, plays the piece Song to the Moon with soul that will touch your heart and an unparalleled musicianship. Immaculate control, giving the piece emotional power with flutist perfection. Thoughts of this special guest tonight is the amazing Eugenia Moliner. She plays with musical punctuation and pronunciation, all in the right places, unsurpassed beyond one's imagination and description. This song, Song to the Moon, you may all have referenced it from the soundtrack that was played on Driving Miss Daisy, which is a very popular old school movie. Eugenia will have the hair on the back of your necks standing in agreement as she plays with joy, pain, and love. This album has many great tracks. However, she saved the best for last. Song to
Mhm.
the Moon, in my opinion, is a romantic piece where the moon is being honored. The masterry is just so natural and it is not forced. As Eugenia plays, you hear a little bit of sadness, but it really progresses into a healing. So when you're hearing Song to the Moon, it is like drinking a warm glass of cocoa on a fall or winter breeze, and it's in the nighttime. Cuddle with a blanket and a nice book as Song to the Moon plays in the background. Eugenia plays Song to the Moon as if it will be picturing some mesmerized by its joyous tones, epitomized by such peaceful sounds, ever so effortlessly and full of emotion, heart achingly beautiful, honest and deep touching. A piece to treasure, unyielding artistry, angelic, purification, passion, melancholy, and nostalgia. So I would like to say bravo to Eugenia as she just made this piece just so loving, and it makes you want to make love to your loved one, and it will put you over the moon. So Eugenia, just to give you some background of her quickly, is a former 14-year employee, artistry, and faculty member at the Chicago College of Performing Arts, Roosevelt University. She was there for 14 years. Now, if I am correct, she is a faculty member at UIC. Doing all of this as she continues to tour and express and share this amazing album with all of you guys, including that of the amazing Song to the Moon. Eugenia hails from Spain and has an amazing musical art, as you will hear. So, at this time, hindsighters, please help me honor and welcome Miss Eugenia. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Wow, what a nice introduction. Thank you so much. I don't know, I am speechless. I don't know what to say. I'm so happy to be here in the program with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and just gracing us with your presence this evening as well. So, to kick it off, just please tell the listeners a little bit about Eugenia as the person, and then lead us into Eugenia as the flutist.
So I when I describe myself, I like to say that I'm a happy, optimistic, cheerful person. And I happened to be born in Spain, but I consider myself a humanist. So I think we all belong to the same place. We are all humans. So I'm an optimistic by nature. And I happen to be so lucky to have encountered music through through a good friend of my father who introduced the flute to me when I was 14 years old. And, you know, the music that I started studying made me realize that that could be the rest of my life. I could be expressing my emotions and doing my way of living with music. And I consider myself very lucky because of that. So, you know, I am just a person who happens to live in the United States by chance. I was studying in the Netherlands before I came to US, and my husband was invited to come to perform in the United States. And after he came back to the Netherlands, he said, we have to go to the US. Let's go and explore how it's living there. And that's what we did. You know, we came in the year 2000, 1999, 2000. And ever since, you know, I consider myself now Spanish American or American Spanish. And I'm very happy living in this country. Of course, there are things in every country, there are things that you like, you don't like. But so far, I have to say, I feel welcome, and I've learned so much, and I have done so many wonderful things. And, you know, just a Spanish American flutist living in Chicago.
And I love it. And I'm super excited that you grace the world with your talents, because you truly are a gem to the world of musicians. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, let's jump right into it. What was it like creating this specific piece, Song to the Moon?
You know, I have to give all the credits of the idea of commissioning this piece based on the famous song from Rusalka, from Dvorak opera Rusalka. I have to give the credit to a dear friend of mine who I met in Chicago probably 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody who is very special for me and my husband. My husband is also a musician. He plays the classical guitar, and we have a duo together. And this friend has, you know, big fan and supporter. And when I say supporter, I mean not only, you know, supporting us emotionally, but also he has underwritten many of our commissions. So he has the means to do that. And he called me one day a few years ago, and he told me, I've been listening to this opera by Dvorak, Rusalka, and I'm listening to Song to the Moon, and that would make a wonderful piece for you and Dennis. Dennis is my husband.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, my husband could not play the guitar. He had some issues in his hands, and luckily he's over that. He's recovered. But at the time, he could not play. So I decided to move on and to do this commission and to ask a composer to do the piece for flute and piano. And that's how Song to the Moon came to be. It was his idea, but from his idea, I developed the entire line of the album, of doing the album based on different songs and leads. So the entire album, it's pieces that were originally written for voice and orchestra, or voice and piano. And I just asked the pieces that were already arranged, which were only a few of them. The others, I asked a wonderful friend and composer to arrange them. And there were others by Mahler that were already arranged. So it's like a compilation of pieces that I was able to put together to make a beautiful album based on the human voice played with the flute.
Absolutely. So you've also played this piece in concert. So tell me, what is the feeling or difference in playing the Song to the Moon in concert versus recording in the studio?
Oh, it's a very good question. You know, recording is never the same than performing. What happens when you are recording is that, first of all, you are more aiming for perfection, and you are, you know, you have the facility to repeat 3 times. At least that's how I put myself, you know. I repeat 2 or 3 times the same part, and until it's completely perfect, and then we move on to the next part. When you do a concert, those things are not important. What is important is just to play the moment, to enjoy the moment, and to do the moment. Not that you don't have to do that while you record, but while you record, you are also aiming for perfection. When you play, perfection is not the thing is in my mind. What is in my mind is to transmit and to, to share with my audience the feelings in that exact moment. It's like living in the now.
Mm-hmm.
In a recording, of course, you capture that moment during a recording, but to capture the fleeting soul of the music, it's extremely difficult. I have to tell you that when I was recording Song to the Moon, my brother had passed away a few years earlier, and I had kind of kept inside of me the grief.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I did not cry in his funeral, I did. And I was next to him when he died in my hands. But I feel like I still had so much, like a well of water inside of me that I had to pour out. And when I was playing this piece, and I was playing the song itself, the theme of the Song to the Moon, I was really, really crying to my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do feel that this recording is a little bit different than any other I have done until now, because you try to control your emotions as much as you can when you are playing, so that you focus on playing the technique and everything clean and knowing what is coming next perfect. But here I could not hold it, and I was just putting my soul and my whatever you want to call it. I was pleading to my brother, wherever you are, this is for you.
Oh, I love that. And definitely my condolences on the passing of your brother who left you in 2019. And he
Thank,
was your rock and your supporter, absolutely.
thank
And so share more about how he played such an important role in you becoming a musician.
you know everybody in their lives, I love listening to people's stories, how they became involved in what they do, in
Mhm.
how they found their way of living. I was, as I mentioned before, I was very lucky because a neighbor friend of my father came and he asked who wanted to learn music. But remember, I come from a small town in Spain where being a musician was not a way of living. It's like they have never seen anybody who would, make a good living performing or even being a teacher.
Right.
My parents were not musicians. I didn't have any family members who were musicians before that. And the man who came and asked me to study music, he was an amateur. So I did not have any role model ahead of me, and my parents didn't know better. So I had my mother really resistant for me becoming a musician, or in a principle, at the beginning. My father was a little bit more neutral, but my brother stood in front of them and said, if she wants to be a musician, she doesn't have to be, doing what you want. She has to do what she feels. And I will be here supporting her and giving all my, emotional and uh, brother brother support to her. And he was working at the time, and he was able also, to tell my parents, she doesn't have to work now. I want to help her, so she will do it. So I'll never forget that. And she's the reason why I could start without almost any problem, because he helped me.
And that's so beautiful. It's like what you just stated. It's like you painted a picture, and it's like something out of a book, where the kids or the siblings are standing up to their parentals and saying, I know you don't see this for, the child that's, wanting to do this. However, I see the greatness that can become of it. And, our parents normally want, most of the time, want the best for us, all the time want the best for us.
Yes.
They can't see the trees through the forest because they know only one way. They don't see it as lucrative, or as you stated earlier within to your share, teachers and musicians, people often frowned upon, or anything, even artists, painters, they look at those types of artistry as something that's not going to benefit them in the long run, or that's long-standing career-wise, but
They are
not.
concerned, they
Yeah,
think it's
that's
a
right.
bohemian life and it's not a stable life. Of course, that changed radically many, many years ago,
Yeah.
and a few years after I started. And remember one thing also, my brother was only 2.5 years older than me,
Wow.
and he was 17 and a half when this episode happened. I was already 15, studying solfeggio, and I
Mhm.
took and I decided at that time very early that I wanted to be a musician, and he stood by me. So years later, when I reflect and I look how he always was, supportive of me, and he was very proud, and I will never ever forget that. As soon as, I mean, my son was born, you know
Mhm.
talk to him about that story. I tell that story to everybody. It's
You
like
should. You should.
everybody knows that.
Yes, to be so young, I mean, 17 is still young, and he was growing into himself at the time, your brother, and
Yeah,
he rest in peace. But to stand up for you and fight for you and say, I support her, I'll be here. I love the fact that you took that and you allowed that to keep you going through it all. So kudos to you, and kudos to your brother as he continues to watch over you, as your angel.
thank you.
Absolutely.
That
So
means
go ahead.
that means a lot. I'm saying yes.
Absolutely. So, out of all the many instruments that are in the world, why the flute? And specifically, you play the sea flute, correct?
That's correct.
Hmm.
So I started with another instrument actually. The person who first taught me music, Juan Gual was his name. Wonderful person, wonderful human being. He used to play the French horn.
Mm.
He played a brass instrument, and he was an amateur player, but he knew so much music. And he first gave me the trumpet because he was familiar with the trumpet and he knew how to teach me a little bit. But after a month, I could not play the trumpet because I had pain in my lips. And a friend of his had a spare flute, and he said, why don't you take the flute, because the flute probably is more feminine for you. He thought that, and he told me that. Very funny. So I took the flute, and believe it or not, when the flute landed in my hands, I felt like, oh my God, when you see in the cartoons this eureka little bulb light coming into your head. So I had an eureka moment, like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. It was so bizarre. And he didn't know much about the flute. He in fact taught me some things okay, some things wrong. And I did not have a proper flute teacher until I was 17. And I I have to tell you, he taught me even things that were not correct, but he taught me something that you cannot thank enough, which is he taught me his love for music. And so I'm very grateful for him regardless. So he gave me the flute and he gave me the love for music. What else can I ask? I went on and I found my way to find other teachers who would teach me correct everything. And so that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, we know that there are so many arrangements of Song to the Wind, to the Moon.
Yeah.
Your selection of the flute, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the Forgach work, why this rendition?
I asked the composer to take the theme of the song. The song has two parts,
Uh-huh.
and from that, I asked him, make an introduction, compose an introduction to this theme, and after do a variations on the theme.
Mm.
I asked him to do what other composers have done before, like Schubert has a very famous piece for flute and piano.
Mm-hmm.
Trockenblumen, the variations on the Trockenblumen is a song that he wrote for voice and piano, and from that song he made these variations for flute. And I wanted to do the same with Song to the Moon. And at the beginning, the composer was a little bit like, "Are you sure this is going to work?" I said, "Try." And I trust Alan. Alan Thomas is an American composer who lives in London, and I love we have been collaborating with him for many years, and I love his writings, his composition, his music writing, and I love his musical taste. And I think he wrote a wonderful piece, and I can't wait that other flutists play it. So yeah, that's what happened. You know, that's how it came to be.
Now, describe Song to the Moon in your own words. Like, what does it make you feel like when you play this piece and when you hear this piece, not just even from you playing it, but from others, because we know where it came from, where it helped you build. And I think you heard me in my introduction. I mentioned where I hear the joy in it, I hear the pain in it, and I hear
Mhm.
the healing in it as you play, like part one leading into part two, where you hit those beautiful high notes, right? And
Yes.
you continue on. I hear it all masterized and all of that. But for yourself, when you play or you hear Song to the Moon, describe in your own words what that feels like specifically for you.
So, you know, I can explain you what it feels to me, but I want to tell you just a little bit of background what the music is about. So
Please.
Rusalka is like a it's like a fairy or like a nymph that lives in the water. This is a mythical character that in many countries in Europe exist. This is the part of Eastern Europe. Dvorak was Czech, if I'm not mistaken, and in that area where he comes from, Bohemia and other parts of Europe, there was this mythological character, which is a woman who was in love with a man, but she was not loved back. You know, the typical
Mm,
mythological thing. And when you hear that beautiful, what you call the high notes on the flute, you know, it's her pain. It's her love and her pain. A composer like Dvorak, who is the original composer of the theme, Song to the Moon, he is such a genius that he's capable of doing that in the same time, which is sorrow and beauty
mm,
and sadness and happiness, you know, all that in the same time.
mhm.
How can you do that? I mean, but if you're a genius, you can do. I am just a vessel who transmits those emotions. That's how I see myself as a player. You know, I just look at the notes that are on the paper or on the screen in my iPad, and I just I just try to find the soul behind those notes. And as I said, having this sorrow of the grief, um, to me, playing this was like a catharsis. I felt cathartic, like the pain and sadness of losing my dear Pedro, my brother.
Mhm.
It's just like you know, you open yourself up to all the emotions. I felt how many times we would go when we were little to the back side of my parents' house in the sea in Spain to catch frogs. You know, I was like a tomboy with him, and I would go with him, you know, to catch frogs and to catch little snakes and
Wow.
you know, and to do little kids thing, you know, and
Yes.
I have so many memories of spending summers, you know, going to the sea. He taught me how to swim, and he would teach me how to go and catch mussels or even octopus.
Wow.
And you know, we grew up on the Mediterranean, and I grew up learning how to swim on the sea, not on a swimming pool, but on the sea. And he was so adventurous, and all these emotions were crossing my mind. And at the same time, seeing him deteriorate during his cancers and sickness, and how he drifted away in my hands, and I told him, wait for me, I will join you once, you know. And so all these things, you know, were in my mind when I was playing.
Yes. So, how do you select your pieces? I mean, on your album, there's approximately 12 songs, and all of them are just so phenomenal. And there's a difference. Like, they all have like this different tone, but Song to the Moon, to the Moon, like I stated, I
Mhm.
can hear just a different, I can hear your joy, I can hear your pain, and I can hear your healing all in just this one piece. So how do you select your pieces for your album?
So look, for example, let me give you an example. There is a set of 5 songs or leads by Mahler, Gustav Mahler. Gustav Mahler has never, actually, that's not true. He wrote one quartet as a chamber music setting, but all of the other of the pieces he wrote were orchestral pieces. Okay, but these 5 leads that are here are arrangements of those leads that are originally for voice and orchestra. And some wonderful German composer, his name is let me see, Cornfield. I was looking for his first name, but his last name came first. Cornfield is his last name. He arranged them, and he made them for flute and piano rather than it could be, I do not know, for horn, English horn and piano or whatever. But because the flute is the closest instrument to the voice, he felt it would be good. So why I chose that set is because I love Mahler, and Mahler is a new romantic composer. And Dvorak, Song to the Moon, it's in my opinion, my humble opinion, is a romantic piece.
Yes.
And it's a very kind of deep and storytelling song. And these 5 pieces by Mahler are also very descriptive. In fact, I'm going to tell you, there is one of them, number 5. So the track number 5, which is written in German because Mahler was German, and it says, "Auf den ich sie sind nur ausgegangen." I'm not pronouncing that good at all. I speak Dutch, but not German. But what it means, I know what it means. It means that I think I can hear them playing outside.
Oh, yes.
And you know why he wrote that piece? Because 2 of his children died.
Oh.
And he wrote that in memory of his children. And when I heard this piece arranged for flute, I was thinking, I have to play this set. I have to do this. This is perfect for my album, because this is exactly how I feel. When I go back to Spain, I close my eyes and I see my brother in front of me, talking to me and telling me things, or I hear him mumbling around or making jokes, and this is exactly what music is about. Music wakes up emotions, brings memories to your head, brings memory to your heart. And I chose this repertoire because this was so close to what I was feeling. Then the 7 songs of Schubert, which were already arranged by Theobald Bohm in the 19th century. They are from different of his Winterreisen, several cycles of songs that Schubert wrote. You remember Schubert died when he was 31. Imagine, he have written so many more things. So these are beautiful songs, beautiful. The most famous one here is Stangen. A very, very, very famous song. It usually is sang with tenors or with bass baritone or with contralto, but it can also be played with cello, with violin, with flute. It's such a special melody. So all these pieces just were fitting perfect with what I wanted to convey. And then the last piece that is not belonging to any of these sets, besides the variation of Songs to the Moon, is Twilight. Twilight, it was written from inside of a cycle of 8 poems and songs by Nikolai Medtner, who was a Russian composer, very unknown actually until recently, because a lot of Russian composers, unfortunately, after World War II, they stayed there. They were not able to come to the West, and their music kind of got a little bit lost, and we didn't hear their music. Luckily, his music is coming back, and this song, Twilight, is again, Twilight. That title is already very enigmatic and conveying so many different feelings and things. So I felt I asked the composer Alan to arrange it for flute and piano. Very challenging, but we did it. And the piano part is amazing, and the flute part is to die for. So I'm so happy that it really matches the entire theme of the entire album.
I agree. And I can't wait for the listeners to hear your entire album, because it will play after the interview all of the songs on the album, starting with Song to the Moon, even though it's the last song on the track. It will definitely be at the top of the list immediately after they hear from none other than you and I in our conversation, and then followed by the remaining list of all the songs on your album. So we're going to have just a grandiose time hearing your craft and all of the composers that played a part into making of your songs and your album. So kudos to you there. So with that said, what is next for Eugenia?
So I am playing mainly now with my cavatina duo. I just released another album doing chamber music with guitar, and then also with harp and with voice. Beautiful album, the music of Rami Levin. And this coming spring, March 2025, I'm releasing yet another one with a string quartet and other strings, a very well-known string quartet here in America called Pacifica Quartet. They are collaborating with us. The title of the album is River of Fire. Is music based on Gypsy or Roma,
That's gonna be great.
Gypsy music from around the world. And I'm so looking forward to play with them more and to bring this program to everywhere in the world, to Europe and to American audience.
Absolutely. And you're going to have to share that with hindsight, because I'd love me some good gypsy music. And oh my gosh, I know that's going to be so amazing. So I can't wait for you to share it with our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes. So what advice can you share with the listeners or give to the listeners who are interested in becoming flutists?
You know, I play the flute, but I could be playing any other instrument. I consider myself first a musician, then a flutist, somebody
Yes.
who play the flute. I have to tell you that the flute is a very, at the beginning, is a very challenging instrument to play, because you have to control and master. You spend all your life doing that. The air, it's the air instrument. It's a wind instrument. Is everything you have to do is control your air column. At the beginning, it's hard, what I said, because if you play the piano and you just press a key, the piano sounds. With the flute, does not happen like that. It takes a few months or so. What I would advise people not to give up, and no matter how old you are, even if you never play the flute, give it a try. It's an instrument that is very close to you. It's very intimate, because you have to make it sound through your physical kind of, very involving your body very much. It's a very organic instrument. Although mine is of metal, is not wood. I could have a wood flute, but what I meant by organic is that the sound is made with so much of you. The resonance of the flute, it's also what happens inside of your head, of your chest, of your throat, of your neck. It's a combination of the instrument and a combination of what the air inside of you does, in the resonating box that you have, like a singer. And so it is it's very challenging at the beginning, but it's very rewarding after. So that's my advice. Please don't give up and play the flute. It's a wonderful instrument.
I love that. I love that. So where can the listeners find you and support you and attend your concerts and things of that sort?
So they can visit my personal website, official website, which is my name, Eugenia Moliner, EugeniaMoliner, eugeniamoliner.com. And they can also find Cavatina Duo, which is my duo with my husband, CAVATINADUO, cavatinaduo.com. And they can also find us or find me in Spotify or in Apple Music or in Amazon, everywhere there is music to download. There it's Cavatina Duo or Eugenia Moliner Music. So
And that's awesome. And now Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It has been a pleasure to be here talking to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, is there anything else you want to share about Song to the Moon before we depart here, or anything else you just want to leave with the listeners?
If there is any flutist listening, please don't be shy and contact me or the composer, Alan Tomasz. And now the album is out, you are able to have the music, the scores. And if you want to play any of the pieces that I have here, don't doubt on contacting me. I will be more than happy to share it. And I hope that the music brings as much joy as I had playing it.
Well, Eugenia, again, thank you so very much for joining me, Miss Ty Barnett, on Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM, where there's always something good to talking about. And we hope to have you here again to talk about some of your new work and new things that you're doing within your life and within yourself so that we can continue to support you and follow you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So listeners, thank you for tuning in. And please, as Eugenia stated, please follow her and listen to her music and attend some of her concerts so that you can listen to these amazing pieces. And again, Song to the Moon will definitely be playing immediately after this, in addition to the remaining songs on the album. So we thank you. Please remember to visit the website at www.hindsightmediaradio.com. Good night.